When my husband transferred money to his first love. For the 100th time I made a decision I never imagined I would. I ended the pregnancy of the child he had been so eager for. It happened just half an hour earlier. Sans Curtis had finally come home to celebrate my birthday. Something he hadn't done in a long time. Right in the middle of it. His phone rang. It was his first love. Cassandra, and her coy voice filled the room as she said, "You promised to compensate me $15,000 for spending that time with her. Now that you're celebrating her birthday, you should double it without hesitation." Sans transferred $1 million from our savings. The money we had set aside to buy a house for our baby. Straight to her. He didn't even blink. A few minutes later Cassandra posted a screenshot of the transfer, along with an ultrasound image of her pregnancy. The caption read, "After 3 years together, we've finally been blessed with the fruit of our love. Thanks to my dear husband for the wonderful gift for our baby." In less than 3 minutes Sans made an excuse and rushed out of the house, leaving me alone on my birthday. In the past I might have panicked, begged him to stay, or even cried. But this time something in me shifted. I didn't care anymore. By the time Sans came back, the movers had just finished taking the last of my things. Having just undergone the abortion, I couldn't stand upright for long, so I sat on the sofa, quietly directing the workers as they carried my belongings. Sans frowned in confusion when he saw them. "What's going on here?" he asked with his sharp voice. Didn't even look at him. My focus entirely on the movers as they took the last boxes downstairs. After a moment he seemed to realize what was happening. He grabbed a box from one of the movers, his face full of anger. "Are you crazy? Why are you packing up my stuff?" It was almost laughable. The box he was so worried about didn't even contain his things. On top of it was a high school graduation photo. It was mine. He had probably forgotten that we were high school classmates. His own graduation photo had been cut up and thrown out long ago, when he left me for Cassandra. Back then I stayed silent, watching as the realization began to settle on his face. He quickly put the box down, trying to cover up his confusion. "You're mad, aren't you?" he said, his tone softening as he sat beside me. "There was really an urgent issue at work. I came home as soon as I could. Didn't I?" In the past, whenever he called me honey, my resolve would crumble. I had been in love with him for 8 long years, before we finally got together. And during our marriage I had always given in to him, bending at the slightest hint of his displeasure. But after finding out I was 3 months pregnant, only to discover he had been cheating on me for 3 years, I was done. Exhausted. Sans noticed that I wasn't reacting the way I usually did. He moved closer, his charming eyes searching my face for a hint of emotion. "I found a new fertility drug," he said eagerly. "If you take it, we can get pregnant again quickly. Let's give it a try." Having a child had been his greatest wish for the last 5 years. We had tried everything from medications to treatments, but nothing had worked. He had been desperate for a baby. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He still didn't know, Sans, I had a miscarriage just last night. Our relationship had always seemed stable, or at least that's what I had believed. The only regret I carried was that we had been married for so long, without having a child to call our own. On my birthday I received the news that I was 3 months pregnant. When I held the ultrasound report in my hands, they trembled with excitement. I envisioned a beautiful surprise, hiding the report inside a cake, and unveiling the joyous news to Sans. However, before I could even slice into the cake, everything changed. I stumbled upon the messages on his phone between him and Cassandra. For 3 whole years their contact had never stopped. Johns had sent money to her 99 times. On PayPal last night marked the 100th time. But this time it wasn't just any amount. He had transferred all of the savings we had carefully set aside for our baby to Cassandra. At that moment, the joy I had been carrying inside me felt like a cruel joke. Was 3 months pregnant and excited about our future, but he had been cheating on me for 3 years. The betrayal felt utterly ridiculous. As soon as the words left my mouth, Sans jumped up from his seat, his knuckles turning white from the tension. He didn't ask why I hadn't confronted him earlier. Not a single question. He froze, his smile faltering as he processed my words. Last night I called him multiple times, desperate to reach him, but he never picked up. He had claimed he was busy with work, too swamped to talk, yet I had seen the truth. On social media no less. Sans had rushed to a private hospital to accompany Cassandra for her prenatal checkup. Xander had posted the news proudly, though she had made sure the post was visible only to me. The picture showed Sans resting, his head on her belly, listening to the baby's heartbeat for the first time. She had written, "My dear husband just heard the baby's heartbeat. From now on both of you will spoil me together." Even though his face wasn't fully visible in the picture, his tall frame and distinct profile were unmistakable. Classmates even commented, asking if it was her husband in the photo, saying how perfect they looked together. And some, recognizing sons, had messaged me to ask if everything was okay. I hadn't responded to any of them. Instead, I packed my things and went straight to the hospital to end my pregnancy. I had given Sons countless chances, but each time he chose to give up on us. Enough, Karen. Suddenly he grabbed my wrist and pinned me onto the sofa. His eyes flared with frustration. 5 years of marriage and no pregnancy. And now you're lying about being pregnant just to get my attention. I was just busy for a bit. And you're acting like it's the end of the world. I laughed bitterly, pulling out my phone. I tossed it in his face, letting the messages do the talking. Busy having a baby with someone else, right?
Sans expression d'Arkend.
He opened his mouth to explain. But before he could say anything, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, and without hesitation answered. What's wrong? Asked, softening his voice immediately. On the other end, Cassandra's tearful voice rang out. Honey, I'm about to have a miscarriage. Please come save me, damn it. Fans cursed under his breath, throwing all my packed things back at me as he spoke gently to her. Hold on, I'm on my way. Without even looking at me, he grabbed his keys and headed for the door. You wait until I get back. We'll talk properly then. And just like that he left, never glancing back, not even noticing the blood still trailing down my legs. From the miscarriage, I stared at the closed door. A wave of coldness washing over me. For the first time, I didn't chase after him. I didn't beg or cry like I used to. Instead, I stood still, wondering what I had been holding on to all these years. 3 minutes later, a notification pinged on my phone. Sons had sent me a voice message. I'll explain everything about Cassandra. But don't think you can run. Wherever you go, I'll drag you back. Hearing his words, a surge of sadness washed over me. 8 years of unrequited love. 5 years of marriage, and in the end, all I got was a threat. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I sent a message to a lawyer I knew. Hello. I want to file for divorce as soon as possible. After handling that, I dragged my weakened body to the traffic police department. Even though I was acting tough, I was in big pain. I was hit by a car earlier. The police then told me that they had found the car that hit me earlier. It was an unlicensed pink Maserati. When they showed me the surveillance footage, I recognized the familiar figure behind the wheel. Laugh escaped my lips as I called up an old friend. Get some people together and help me settle a score. I'll pay you 100,000 once it's done. I wasn't going to let either the cheating scumbag or the reckless driver get away with it. I had heard Cassandra use Sans's money to open a beauty salon. 4 high-end clients when I arrived. Parked right outside. Among the luxury cars was the unmistakable pink Maserati, the very car Cassandra had bought with the $1 million Sons had compensated her with. And the first thing she did after getting that car was come after me. My lips curled into a cold sneer as I turned to the security team I brought along. Smash it without hesitation. They followed my command even before I finished speaking. The first hammer had already come crashing down, leaving a deep dent. The car alarm blared, drawing the attention of everyone inside the salon. Soon the clients came rushing outside, but not one of them dared to intervene. It seemed they were all well aware that Cassandra was nothing more than a shameless mistress, kept their distance silently watching. Moments later, Cassandra herself came running out, clearly having just finished with a wealthy client. She hadn't even taken off her gloves. The moment she saw me, she tried to charge forward, but my bodyguards quickly blocked her. Are you insane? You an old hag dare to destroy my car? This is private property. I'll call the police and have you arrested. She shouted, her voice shrill with anger. I calmly threw Sansa's transfer records in her face. I'm still married to him. It's my money in my car. What's wrong with smashing it? Cassandra was momentarily speechless. She gritted her teeth, quickly pulling out her phone as if clinging to her last hope. She dialed Sans several times, but not a single call went through. By now the high-end clients were beginning to understand the situation. I could hear them whispering in disdain. She looks so respectable, but she's just a mistress, using another woman's husband's money to buy a car. She got what she deserved. I smiled, nodding in agreement. And that's not all. With a flick of my wrist, I scattered the screenshots, showing Cassandra behind the wheel of her Maserati, hitting me that very morning. Not only did she use my husband's money to buy this car, but she also tried to kill me with it. The moment those words left my mouth, the expressions of the wealthy clients shifted instantly. One of the clients, who had just been served by Cassandra, was so furious that she slapped her across the face. I can't believe I let this mistress touch me. How revolting, Mrs. Vasquez. It's not true. Don't believe her lies. She's the real mistress. Sandra pointed at me with trembling hands. Don't you know the one who isn't loved is the actual mistress? What she's doing makes her no better than one. I've known Sans way longer than she has. She added, her voice grew more hysterical as she continued. We've been in love for so long. If it weren't for her, Sans would have married me a long time ago. She's the one who ruined everything. Her outburst was almost laughable to me. Oh really? I raised an eyebrow and slapped her across the face hard. You seduced My husband caused my car accident and made me lose my baby. Tell me which of these am I wrong about? As I spoke, a sharp pain radiated from my abdomen, reminding me of everything I had endured. I hadn't been sure about terminating the pregnancy at first. After all, I had longed for a child for years. But then on my way to the hospital, out of nowhere a car hit me. Blood poured from me, and by the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. I had no choice but to undergo the abortion. I lost the baby. Cassandra's cruelty wouldn't go unpunished. As we argued, the pink Maserati outside was already beyond recognition. Smashed to pieces, my friend's team, motivated by the fact they were dealing with a mistress, was more enthusiastic than ever. Some of them stormed into the beauty salon. Soon the digital sign outside had been altered to read, "Owner Cassandra, proud mistress, dedicated to helping legitimate wives expand their families." The salon staff had never seen anything like it. Screams filled the air as more and more people gathered outside, snapping photos and whispering to each other. Cassandra's face was red with rage. Desperate, she whipped out her phone to call Sans. This time he answered, "Baby, I'm being bullied, come to the salon and help me," she whined after a brief exchange. The call ended. Cassandra glared at me with disdain, her voice laced with arrogance. "You old hag, you had the guts to bring people here and cause trouble. Just wait and see what happens." I crossed my arms and gave her an indifferent look. "Let's see who'll be the one waiting." "Let's see," I replied, my voice dangerously soft. I pulled a chair from the salon's reception area, dragged it to the center of the shattered glass on the sidewalk, and sat down. The throbbing ache in my lower abdomen was a relentless reminder of what I had lost, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the cold, absolute clarity in my mind. 10 minutes later, a black Porsche Cayenne slammed to a halt at the curb. The tires shrieked against the asphalt. Sans threw the door open, his tailored suit jacket unbuttoned, his face a mask of panicked rage. "Son!" Cassandra wailed. The arrogance she had worn just moments before evaporated, replaced instantly by the fragile, weeping persona of a victim. She sprinted toward him, burying her face in his chest. "Look what she did. She brought a gang of thugs here. She ruined my car, she ruined the salon. She even hit me, Sans. Think of our baby." Sans wrapped an arm around her waist, his eyes scanning the wreckage of the pink Maserati, the vandalized sign, and the crowd of whispering bystanders. Finally, his gaze locked onto me. The charming, gentle man I had loved for 8 years was entirely gone, replaced by a stranger vibrating with hatred. "Karen, have you completely lost your goddamn mind?" he roared, stepping toward me while keeping Cassandra safely tucked behind him. "I told you I would explain things when I got home. I told you not to cause a scene. Is this how you act? Like a deranged, jealous shrew?" I didn't blink. I didn't stand up. I simply looked at the man I had once believed was my soulmate. "Explain what exactly? The 3 years of cheating? The $1 million you stole from our joint account? Or maybe you wanted to explain how your mistress tried to murder me this morning?" Sans froze for a fraction of a second, but Cassandra tightened her grip on his shirt. "She's lying, Sans. She's just saying anything to cover up the fact that she destroyed my property. She's insane. Property paid for with my marital assets." I corrected, my tone conversational. I looked at Sans. "Did you really think transferring money via PayPal 99 times wouldn't leave a paper trail? Did you think the $1 million we saved for our future child was just yours to give to a homewrecker?" Sans' face flushed a deep, ugly red. "It's my money. I earned the bulk of it. Cassandra needed security. She's carrying my child, Karen. Something you couldn't manage to do for 5 years. Do you know how humiliating it is to be a man with no heir? She gave me a miracle." The crowd gasped. Several women in designer coats who had been clients of the salon began to mutter in disgust. Sans didn't care. He was too far gone, blinded by his desperate need for fatherhood and his toxic obsession with his high school flame. "You want to talk about miracles?" I asked, my voice dropping an octave. I slowly reached into my designer handbag and pulled out 2 pieces of paper. I stood up, ignoring the shooting pain in my gut, and walked toward him. I threw the first paper directly at his chest. It fluttered to the ground. "Pick it up," I commanded. Something in my dead, hollow stare must have unnerved him. Sans hesitated, then stooped down to grab the paper. It was my ultrasound from yesterday. 3 months pregnant. Healthy heartbeat. His eyes scanned the medical jargon, his pupils dilating. What is this?" he stammered, the color draining from his face. You were actually pregnant?" I said. "And the second piece of paper?" I dropped the police report and the hospital discharge papers at his feet. "Read it out loud, Sans." He didn't read it out loud. His eyes darted across the bold ink. Traumatic impact. Unlicensed vehicle. Emergency dilation and curettage. Fetal demise. "No," Sans whispered, shaking his head. The papers trembled in his hand. He looked from the papers to me, then down at the blood that had soaked through the fabric of my dark trousers, leaving a rust-colored stain. "No, Karen, you said. I said I had a miscarriage. I said I ended the pregnancy. But I didn't tell you how. I pointed a trembling finger at the weeping woman cowering behind him. Your precious first love. The woman you gave $1 million to. She took the pink Maserati you bought her, waited for me to cross the street near the clinic, and accelerated. She hit me, Sans. She murdered our child. She's lying. Cassandra shrieked, her voice cracking. It's a forged document. She's trying to frame me because she's barren. Before Sans could even process the conflicting information, the wail of police sirens pierced the air. 2 patrol cars pulled up, lights flashing, scattering the crowd of onlookers. 4 officers stepped out, led by the detective I had spoken to earlier at the precinct. Cassandra Miller? The lead detective asked, his hand resting on his utility belt. Cassandra shrank back. I didn't do anything. We have HD surveillance footage from the intersection of Elm and 4th, as well as dashcam footage from a passing delivery truck, the detective stated loudly, ensuring the entire crowd heard. It clearly shows an unlicensed pink Maserati intentionally running a red light to strike a pedestrian before fleeing the scene. We matched the VIN on the vehicle here to the dealership records. Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. You are under arrest for attempted vehicular manslaughter and hit and run resulting in grievous bodily harm. Sans looked like he had been struck by lightning. He stepped away from Cassandra as if she were made of fire. Calf, did you? Sans, help me. Do something. I'm carrying your baby. Cassandra screamed as the officers grabbed her arms and forced them behind her back. The metallic click of the handcuffs echoed over the quiet street. Sans stood paralyzed. He looked at the smashed Maserati, then at the blood on my clothes, and finally at the ultrasound picture in his hand. The reality of what he had done, what he had funded, crashed down on him in real time. He fell to his knees right there on the pavement, clutching the ultrasound to his chest. My baby, he choked out a guttural, pathetic sound. Karen, our baby. Not ours anymore, I said, my voice devoid of an ounce of pity. I looked down at him, feeling nothing but a profound, absolute emptiness. Have a nice life, Sans. My lawyer will contact you by tomorrow morning. I turned my back on him, signaled to my friends, and walked away. I didn't look back when he screamed my name, nor when Cassandra cursed him for not bailing her out immediately. The next 3 months were a masterclass in systematic destruction. I didn't just want a divorce. I wanted to surgically extract every ounce of comfort, dignity, and wealth Sans had built on the foundation of my loyalty. I hired Elias Thorne, a ruthless divorce attorney known in our city as the Widowmaker. I gave him full access to my financial records, Sans' hidden accounts, and the police reports. Because Sans had used marital funds to finance an affair, and because that affair resulted in a violent crime against me, the judge froze all of Sans' assets within a week. Cassandra was denied bail. The prosecution upgraded her charges when they realized she had actively stalked my location through an app Sans had carelessly left logged in on his iPad. She was looking at a minimum of 10 years in a state penitentiary. But the true killing blow didn't come from the courts. It came from a private investigator I hired to look into Cassandra's past. If Sans and I had struggled to conceive for 5 years, despite expensive fertility treatments, how was it that Cassandra miraculously fell pregnant within months of them reconnecting? Sans had always blamed me for our infertility. He never went to get tested himself, claiming his masculinity was fine and the problem was my stress levels. The investigator handed me a manila folder 2 days before my final divorce mediation. Inside were photos of Cassandra leaving a cheap motel, hand in hand with a heavily tattooed man. Marcus Thorne, the PI, told me. Her personal trainer. They've been sleeping together for a year. He's also broke and has a gambling addiction. I took those photos to the mediation. We met in a sterile, glass-walled conference room. Sans looked like a ghost of the man I married. He had lost at least 20 pounds. His tailored suit hung off his frame. His eyes were bloodshot and his hands trembled. The scandal of the arrest and the affair had leaked to his company. The board of directors, not wanting a VP embroiled in a high-profile attempted murder case, had forced him to resign. Karen, he whispered when I sat across from him. He reached across the mahogany table. Please, talk to me. I've lost everything. I haven't slept. I dream about the baby. I dream about the nursery we were supposed to build. I pulled my hands away, letting his fingers grasp empty air. Sign the papers, Sans. You give me the house, my business shares, and you assume the debt for the $1 million you stole. If you don't, we go to trial, and I will make sure the media gets every single detail of your pathetic life. I'll sign, he said, his voice breaking. I don't care about the money anymore. I just want you to know I'm sorry. I thought Cassandra was my second chance at being a father. She's all I have left now. I have to stand by her. For my child's sake. I let out a slow, dark laugh. It echoed in the quiet room. Even my lawyer looked at me with a hint of apprehension. Your child? I asked. I slid the manila folder across the table. Open it. Sans frowned, his trembling fingers undoing the clasp. He pulled out the glossy photographs. He stared at the images of Cassandra kissing the tattooed man. What is this? Who is he? That's Marcus, I said, leaning forward, lowering my voice to a lethal whisper. Cassandra's boyfriend. The one she's been seeing the whole time she was draining your bank account. Sans shook his head violently. No, she loves me. She's carrying my heir. I took the liberty of paying off Marcus to hand over his medical records and a DNA sample. I continued smoothly, ignoring his denial. And while I was at it, I subpoenaed your old medical files from the fertility clinic. The ones you refused to look at 5 years ago because you were too proud. I slid 2 medical documents over the photographs. You have a condition called severe oligospermia, Sans. Your sperm count is practically non-existent. The doctors tried to tell you, but you stormed out and blamed my uterus instead. My pregnancy? That was the actual miracle. A 1 in a million medical anomaly. I tapped the second paper. Cassandra's baby belongs to Marcus. She needed a rich idiot to fund her life and pay off Marcus's gambling debts. You were the easiest mark she ever found. I watched the exact moment Sans' soul shattered. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was a quiet, horrifying implosion. The color drained from his lips. His jaw slacked. He looked at the paperwork, the undeniable medical proof, and the photos of the woman he had ruined his life for. He had traded a loyal wife, his actual miracle child, his career, and his reputation for a criminal who was using him as an ATM to fund a baby that wasn't even his. No, he whimpered. He grabbed the edges of his hair, pulling at the roots. He slid out of his chair, collapsing onto the carpeted floor of the conference room. He curled into a fetal position, sobbing so violently that he began to hyperventilate. The sound of his weeping was pitiful, a high-pitched keening of a man who realized he had personally orchestrated his own descent into hell. Sign the papers, Sans, I repeated, my voice cold as ice. He blindly reached up, grabbed the pen, and scrawled his name on the divorce decree, his tears smearing the wet ink. A year later, the air in Paris was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh espresso and blooming jasmine. I sat at a sidewalk cafe in Montmartre, a sketchbook open in front of me, sipping a latte. I looked healthy. My hair had grown out, the shadows under my eyes were gone, and the heavy, suffocating weight of loving a man who didn't respect me had vanished. With the money I legally reclaimed from Sans, and the sale of the house we had shared, I had moved to Europe. I opened my own boutique design firm. I was thriving. The trauma of the miscarriage still lingered, an ache that would never fully disappear, but I had learned to carry it. It was a scar, not an open wound. Occasionally, news from back home reached me. I didn't seek it out, but my friends made sure I knew how the story ended. Cassandra was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Marcus abandoned her the moment the money dried up, taking whatever jewelry she had left and fleeing the state. She gave birth in a prison hospital, and the child was placed into the foster system, as she had no family willing to take him. As for Sans, he went completely bankrupt. Without his executive job, he couldn't pay the massive legal fees or the debts I saddled him with. He lost his cars, his designer clothes, his dignity. The last I heard, he was working the night shift at a warehouse, living in a dilapidated studio apartment on the bad side of town. They said he had taken to drinking heavily. They said he carried a crumpled, faded ultrasound picture of my baby in his wallet, showing it to anyone who would listen at the local bars, crying over the child he murdered with his own arrogance. He had tried to email me once, a long, rambling message begging for forgiveness, saying I was the only woman he ever truly loved. I didn't even read the whole thing. I deleted it, blocked his address, and went for a walk by the Seine. I closed my sketchbook, left a few euros on the table, and stepped out into the Parisian sunlight. I had spent 8 years waiting for a man to choose me. Now I was finally choosing myself. And the future had never looked brighter.